Space We Read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now, we are ba-dum-bum in the year of the Dresden. And we are covering chapters 15 through 28 of Deadbeat. One of the first Dresden books where we're like, is this series amazing? I don't know.
Well, I was telling you this off mic, Hannah, because we were both like saying, we just really like this book. What's going on here? We're confused. And we were talking about how people say that this is the book that you can jump into. You can skip the first 6 books and just jump in at 7 and you're good to go. But I was reading online that apparently this was the first book that Butcher had come out initially in hardcover. And so it was like a special one for him, kind of. And he put a lot more effort into it. And so this is why we have almost like nauseating amounts of like, here's what you missed on Glee.
Yeah.
And a lot of descriptions as to why things happened and everything, because he wanted this to be an entry point for new readers because he was getting the hardcover release and everything.
You know what? I think that benefits us, and I don't know how we split this up. Like, we did not research when we split the books up to like 6A or 6B. We just said,
but it worked out perfectly. We just fall into things.
Yeah. And we just said like, ooh, it's like we planned the perfect thing. So yes, 6B starts with the official hardcover release, and we did that on purpose, everyone.
We meant to do this.
We researched diligently before we jump into a book series a la Wheel of Time and Jim Butcher. So
we were talking about this recently with a friend about how we like see certain authors as the characters and how Jim Butcher is Harry Dresden in my mind. Like I cannot separate the two. Like anytime I think about Harry Dresden, I'm literally in my mind picturing Jim Butcher.
I'm like, oh man, that man has long hair. I do that too.
I'm like, he doesn't now. I think he got a haircut recently or something. Good. I mean, it is what it is. Long hair. I like long hair on guys. But I just think it's so funny that like I see him in interviews or something like that, and I'm just like, this man. And it's like, it's a character he wrote, Laura. It's not actually him.
Dresden. Laura's sitting over there being like,
get it together.
Who was that one warden? What was his name? I forget. But the one warden who had it out for Harry, and he's like, I'm gonna get you.
The one that I'm like, he's got some points.
Yeah, you're like, you know what? I too think Harry Dresden should die because my friend died.
He drives me nuts too. I think we should just get rid of him.
Isn't his name like Walter? Guys.
You know what? I can't remember his name.
Well, Laura, before we dive into a book series that we love now, what are you reading?
We're huge fans.
What are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I finished The Fury of the Gods, and I talked about this last week. I've talked about this series ad nauseum probably, but oh my gosh, The Fury of the Gods is so good. I love the Bloodsworn Saga. Like, I'm kind of obsessed. I'm new #1 fan of John Gwynne, and I just really wish more male authors were taking the time to develop women characters in this way. And I just think that especially the character of Elvar had a really great story arc, and I really just love this series so much and appreciate all the depth that Gwynne gives to these women and how they're not a monolith. Shock. And
no, that can't be true. Everyone's a monolith, Laura.
What? It's not all about cleavage.
But I'm sorry. Welcome to my world. It's all about cleavage. So.
Oh, not for me, unfortunately. There's no cleavage involved. Look into my reality. But no, these books are fantastic. I am obsessed with them. I want to be Orca for Halloween. And
that's amazing.
It's always a good sign when I'm like, I'm going to be this character for Halloween.
And everyone's gonna totally get the reference.
Everyone will totally know. No, they won't, but I'll explain it ad nauseum to everyone at the one Halloween party that I go to, if I go. Because social anxiety. The other thing that I've been reading currently, because Hannah, you and I were talking about this, we feel like we have this weird pressure that we have to like have completed things in order to talk about them on the podcast. And it's
For
like,
you, the listeners, to be like, we
yes, for you,
know
the
that this
listeners.
is a good book, and you can't come with us on the journey. The journey has already ended.
Right. Because we're like, yeah, we need to give an accurate review because in the last 100 pages, something might drastically change in our opinion. And so I have been having a hard time reading and everything. So I'm trying to give myself more grace to enjoy things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been reading The City We Became, and
Ooh.
I love it. I think it's not an exaggeration for me to say that N.K. Jemisin may be the best writer alive right now. Like I
You're only
don't
saying
think
that
that's an
because she's listened
exaggeration.
to the pod.
Is she listening? Uh, Nora Jemisin, are you listening right now? This
Please come on the show.
please come on. This is not a gimmick. I swear. Like I literally think I'm being completely honest when I say that I think that N.K. Jemisin may be the best writer currently out there. Like this
Yeah.
book series is so well written and also just like so creative. I am immensely impressed by how creative Jemison is, and as I'm reading this, I'm thinking like, man, this is just like so imaginative. She be because she just mild breakdown of what is going on in the city we became. We have the five boroughs of New York City
Mm-hmm.
who are avatars that are fighting for the soul of the city uh, as it stands. And so we have a lot of different representations of what it's like to live within the city and the feelings that people have about each other and the way that the city moves and breathes and how a city is a culture and a living entity in itself
Uh-huh.
just because of the people there and how it cities are under attack and the people and the cultures are under attack and how it's important to fight for those things. And
Yeah.
I think that this is just such a unique way to portray the fight against gentrification, against racism, against the loss of culture and art and experience. And it's fantastic. I really love it. And
Yeah.
I think that the characters are really easy to connect with and you root for them. I really just think that Jemison has kind of just walked into writing with this attitude of, you know what, I'm gonna blow it out of the water, and she's
Hold
killing
my
it. She's
beer.
yeah, kind of. It's like did somebody say they wanted a book on gentrification? Wait 1 second.
I got you.
We got it handled. I'm coming in. You wanted a book on the loss of the erosion of culture? I've got it. And it's amazing. I
Yeah.
really just I can't get over this particular author's work. And even like myself reading it right now, I'm very much like feeling my own connection to the place that I live and how important it is to me and how we can appreciate our own surroundings and have complicated feelings about the people there and the things that we're experiencing and the struggles that we experience in our communities and within our cultures, but also have this deep connection and appreciation and love for the places
Yeah.
that we come from. And I just think that that's really a unique thing, too, that even as a reader who is not from the city, who has never been to New York City, that I'm able to have this same type of like familiar feeling with my own community that Jemison is, I think, trying to put out there for the city of New York. And
Yeah.
I just think that that's a really skilled writing ability to be able to kind of place that on readers as well, that you're able to connect with your own surroundings and community just by reading this book about another place. So I just am really enjoying this book a lot. And I've been reading it a full immersion. So I've got the print book that I've been reading this at night before I go to bed. And so I've got the print book, and then I'm also listening to the audio, which is narrated by Robin Miles, who also
Okay.
narrated Jemisin's Broken Earth trilogy, which
Got it. Which you
highly recommend
loved.
that
Yeah.
one. But this one I think is a really, really inspired audiobook because
Okay.
Miles pulls out all the stops. Like she goes hard with the narration in this. Like there is like chanting, there's singing, there's this music and stuff in the background. The different accents and everything spot on. I think it was a really excellent narration, or is a really excellent narration. And so I think I'd recommend people. Have really been enjoying doing full immersion reading, and
Yeah, you've been
especially
like,
this year, I've been all about it. So I think that it's worth it in my mind to go get the paperback and then also get the audiobook from Libby or from Libro FM.
yeah.
Support your local library and your local indie bookstore.
And be
And
kind to librarians right now because the
yes.
wait list just got longer because
Hmm.
of this awful spending bill and things like that. So please remember that if you're using Libby and Hoopla, please still utilize them because they are important resources. Consider
Yes.
donating to them and also
And if you
remember to
can't
be
wait and you
kind.
have the ability to use Libro FM, do that.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, that's another option if you have the ability to utilize
Yes,
Libro FM and cannot wait, do that.
do that.
So, yeah. And also, I think that this series in particular is very much one that I can see myself listening to again. Like,
Yes.
this is one where I'm like, I think this could make it into the rotation for new, like, I want, and this is going to sound bizarre, I guess, if you have read this book series where I'm like, this could make it into the rotation for books that I want to fall asleep to. But,
Oh,
uh,
interesting. That's a
yeah,
pretty wild pick, Laura.
it is a wild pick, but but I mean I listen to The Hobbit a lot to fall asleep,
Yeah.
and there have been times, this is gonna sound dumb, when I've forgotten to put the sleep timer on, and usually I set it for like 2 hours or something, and I forget to put the sleep timer on, and then all of a sudden I'm awoken to Andy Serkis as Gollum going, and that
Uh,
is a scary experience.
yeah, that
So
is scary.
so this is
Ah,
possibly milder than that. Um, but no, I
possible.
can see this one making it into that rotation for like books that I want to fall asleep to because it's like Miles's narration is so good, and I just enjoyed this series or this first book in the series a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to the next one too because this is kind of my goal now that if I'm starting a new series, I'm not going to just like abandon them.
Right.
And my other goal is like I need to get back into some of these other series that I've started and finish them, especially if I own the books. Like if
Yeah.
they're books that I got from the library, that's a little bit trickier. But
Yes.
if I own the books, like I'm getting back into Becky Chambers' series because I'm making it a goal to finish that one this year. I've got two more books to go, and I loved the first two. And so I want to finish those two this year. I need to finish up the Children of Time series. So these are things I want to do. But I'm going to be going right into the world we make, I think, once I get done with the city we became, because I'm like, don't start series and then stop.
That's
Don't
almost like
just
we created a podcast for that, but it's really hard when you only cover one book a month with bonuses.
well, it's also hard when we're like, you know what, let's read a whole series. This one has 37 books. Let's do that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying The City We Became. Just really excellent. Also, the cover of the paperback is cool because it's got like almost like a shiny, like hologram type look to it, where like if you kind of like move it around in different lighting, you can see some of the evil entity coming up in the city,
Well, and is
which is
that the
cool.
one that I was able to get signed for you, or was that a different
Well,
one? I can't remember.
so it's the same copy. I had
Okay,
both books before you went to the NK Jemisin
my
event,
bad.
but the one that you got me that is signed is in its special place up on the shelf where it cannot be harmed. I've been using the other one, which I'm like loving hard, and it's
Yeah,
getting beat up. Where I'm like,
okay.
I don't want to beat up the signed one. That's a
That's
special.
fair.
That's a
I
special book.
look, that was a special
So
moment in my life where I died.
Hannah died to get me that.
Yes, I
So
did. Passed
I
out
cannot
me.
have that book beat up with me like falling asleep in bed with it or something. So uh, I'm using the one that I had already that I'm not afraid to give a little love to.
Fair enough.
But they're the same copy. All the paperbacks, I think, have this like unique design on the front where you can see like in different lighting, like some of them are shiny or like a little bit textured, which is pretty cool too. So I think that Jemisin maybe needs to just like, I don't know, come up with like several other series that I'll adore,
Yeah,
and that would be great. You know,
that would be great.
if she wants to, I
It's
know
not
that
too
when I
much
listened to
trouble.
I listened to the talk that you went to on YouTube, she mentioned that she does have another series that she's working on at the moment, and I don't know that she mentioned any like date or anything like that, but if she wants
Yeah,
to
I
just
don't
like
think
shoot me an
so.
email, uh that'd be fine. I'll take a look at it for you.
Yeah, we'll beta
Um
read for you. We'll
Absolutely,
be
Nora.
totally
Like,
honest and helpful. Also, totally,
yes.
we won't just like fangirl the entire time and be like, you
No,
did
no, no, no,
nothing
no,
wrong,
no.
and if anyone hates it, it's their fault.
No.
So,
Also, can I tell you, just like watching that uh YouTube video of that talk, it kind of threw me off a little bit that NK Jemisin is the one that was just like very chill and kind of making jokes about things, where I was like, did not expect this. I very much expected somebody who, like, obviously she's incredibly intelligent, but I kind of expected someone a little more reserved and kind of just like answering the questions very deeply and everything. And she did answer the questions very deeply, where there were a couple moments where people were like, how do I follow that? But she very much shocked me by being kind of the jokester of that panel. And I was not expecting this. Was not on my bingo card for NK Jemisin to be the jokester.
yeah, I don't know.
And I
I think
love
you and
it.
I have, yeah, I definitely, for me, it made sense, but I'm also someone who is very willing to be like, oh yeah, this is the new normal. I'm here. You are a jokester. Like, but yeah, I get what you're
Well, I
saying.
knew nothing about this author, honestly. I still know nothing about
I mean,
NK
she's
Jemisin, really.
incredibly private. Like, she
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
son. She lives in Brooklyn. She used to be, yeah,
I
she used
mean,
to,
you know more than me.
yeah.
Um, so, but just listening to that talk, I was like, wow, I was not expecting this. And I kind of think that whenever I listen to author interviews, I tend to be thrown off like this when I'm like, oh, so this is their personality, because you get so caught up in the work of the author and kind of what you
Right.
assume that they're like, and it's terrible to make assumptions. But I love that she was kind of a jokester, and yeah, she seems fun and also just so brilliant. And
Oh, yeah.
again, I'll say it, not being paid to do so, but if someone wants to send me some money, that's fine. N.K. Jemisin is likely the best author out here right now. I'm saying it again. Uh, but then the other thing, Hannah, that I've been enjoying, I don't know if you've watched this. Have you watched The Righteous Gemstones?
I watched the first like 4 episodes, and it's one of those
Mhm.
that we really enjoyed it. I watched it with my dad, which wasn't the right energy. And then my husband, well, it's like my dad and I watch weird shows together
I
all the
feel like
time.
your
We watch
husband would
like,
like it.
yeah, my husband loved it.
Yeah.
And he will from time to time, like this is the problem is he will say something and then unless I implement it, it just doesn't happen. Where he'll be like, we need to pick up the Righteous Gemstones again.
Oh,
And he'll
you
just like
absolutely do.
and he'll say it and I'm like, yeah, totally. And then we just don't because usually if we're picking TV, it's just like a random night and you're just like, oh yeah, throw on something we watch that's like newer. But like he loves the Righteous Gemstones. It is a very funny show.
Okay, so I've
We've
binged
only
all of
seen the
it.
first like 3 or 4 episodes though.
I've binged all of it, like all 4 seasons,
Okay.
and that's all there is because the fourth season was the finale,
Mm,
the series finale. But it is some of the best TV that I have watched this year. Like,
yeah.
it's incredibly funny and also cringy, and
Yes.
also like if somebody told me this was a documentary, I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. Like,
Laura's
it,
like totally holds
like
up.
I could
Definitely
buy it.
real.
I could
These
buy
people are
it.
real.
Seems legit.
Yeah.
Seems accurate to what I know about mega churches. I think it's also funny, like, too, just like watching this show. So it follows this family, the Gemstone family, who are these televangelists who run a mega church. And
Yes.
they're obviously fraught with corruption and all sorts of things going on in their lives. It's very much a hypocritical Christian family.
Yes.
And uh, it's so interesting, though, to see how this show is portrayed because, like I said, it does feel very real because a lot of these mega churches are full of scandal and
Hmm.
the way that the money is handed out doesn't seem to always make sense. And it is kind of cleared up in the Righteous Gemstones how that money is distributed and what's going
Yeah.
on. And I just think some of it is just absolutely hilarious. And the way that they portray the people in the family and everything too. And I have on a few occasions like been to the South in the Bible Belt especially, and there are these types of churches and also like singing groups and families that perform and stuff like that it is very reminiscent of the Righteous
Yes.
Gemstones portrayals. So I just think it's hilarious. And Danny McBride came up with this show, and I do like Danny McBride in some of his movies that I've seen him in and everything. He is a very funny man. And
Yeah.
now I'm starting to think maybe this man is a genius because he came up with this show and is also like head writer for it and everything. Because I think that some of the episodes of this show are just inspired because they're so cringy and so funny. And I I just really dig it. And also every time they say Uncle Baby Billy, I lose it because this is an old man that they're still calling Baby Billy. He became a popular gospel children's singer with his sister as under the name Baby Billy. But yeah, the show is a
And he's one
riot.
of your favorites because he is Walton Goggins. So,
Walton Goggins, yeah.
yeah.
I was very
Full
attracted to
circle.
him when he was the ghoul. So
He has layers.
he has layers. He can also be a creepy televangelist man who is called Uncle Baby Billy.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Danny McBride is possibly like a comedic genius after watching this show because I think it's so funny. And this is, like I said, some of the best TV I've watched this year. And I think they also do like kind of a decent job of showing some of the complexities in morality that exist oddly, which for a show that's a comedy I didn't necessarily expect. I kind of expected it to be very much like just making fun of this type of situation, but they do a
I think
fairly good
it's,
job of showing some of the moral dilemmas that people go
yeah.
through,
Well,
and
and I think
I
that that's kind
appreciate
of
that.
the point of a show like this, if you're going to do it well, is to point out that, like, and you and I were talking about this because I'm working on the world building for another story idea. I need to publish my
Mhm.
first book first, but like, the issue isn't religion or it isn't having a deep connection to religion. The issue is when people utilize that to put themselves in higher positions or put themselves in power. But like,
Mhm.
the morality itself comes from a good place. It's how the morality gets utilized that's the problem, which is why there's so much scandal in evangelical churches, is because they have a very specific set of standards that if you deviate from, you are seen as in the wrong. And
Mhm.
those standards are very hard to follow for humanity. So, like, if you
Yeah.
don't have the grace to forgive or to learn, you are going to put it is going to be corrupted.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely. I also think there's just some really good acting in this show. Obviously, they have a lot of big stars that are in this. Danny McBride is a star. He's been in so
Yes.
many things. I mean, Walton Goggins is in a lot of things. He's a great actor. Uh, Adam Devine, he is very funny as
Yes.
Kelvin in this. They
He's a
even
very
bring
funny
out
actor.
they even bring out like some surprise actresses and actors that I'm like, okay, did not expect them to be in this, but cool. And so I have really just adored this show, and it's been so easy to binge it because you just get locked in on like what's going on with these characters and what they're doing and the ridiculousness of it all. And also, like I said, kind of seeing them grow into their own situations where even if they're dealing with moral dilemmas, they're still being crappy people. And I just really dig the show. Also, John Goodman plays
Oh,
the
John Goodman is
patriarch
amazing.
of the family.
Yes.
And I was thinking about him in particular when I was like, there's a lot of good acting in this show. I don't know that I've watched anything with John Goodman where I've been like, he did a bad job. I think he always is so good. I don't know that I've seen him in many things where I'm like, what a terrible acting job you did, John Goodman. It's like, no,
Yeah.
he always kind of
He's
goes
very
100% and is very like serious about his work, and he gets cast really well for whatever reason. Like I know when you're a big actor like him, he probably has roles that are given to him that are kind of made for him, but he I think chooses well too.
yes.
Like there has to be some amount of him also deciding, I think I will do this role or that role. And I think that not only is he cast well, but he just does a really good job and pours himself into these parts. And I have really liked his role as Eli Gemstone in the Righteous Gemstones because
Righteous
I think
Gemstones.
he's done a great job with the part.
Good.
But Hannah, you need to finish it because it's amazing.
I know I do.
What have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I have been doing a lot of audio lately because, like you said, you and I sometimes have this weird need to be like completionist before we bring something new on the
Hmm.
show. Um, and I feel like I'm still getting, 2 years into my job, I'm still getting used to a 40-minute commute and then coming home and reading. And sometimes my brain just shuts off because my
You're
job
just
is,
tired after that.
yeah, and my job is very like on. And so you come home
Hmm.
and you're like, I want to be off. And then you're like, do I really want to read a book right now? And I'm like, not all the time. And a
Hmm.
good way to do that is by listening to audiobooks through Libby, which I utilize quite often, or Hoopla, which,
Hmm.
we also utilize. But I finally listened to a nonfiction book that I had borrowed a couple of times and then like not been able to read or I'd pushed off because it wasn't the right time.
Hmm.
It's called The Black Utopian by Aaron Robertson.
Ooh.
Um, and it's a very like it's almost memoir-esque, but it's not. And I'm I kind of wish I had like read the physical book because I wish I had gotten a little bit more out of it because a lot of this is historical, which I sometimes
Hmm.
like have a hard time focusing on in an audio format. But it's a book that's kind of talking about like the spaces that Black people have tried to create, that is supposed to be their promised land in America after
Hmm.
slavery and after all of these things. He talks a lot about the fact that like his grandfather lived in one of these like utopian style societies that they had tried to build in this different era. And he visited there a lot growing up. He grew up in Detroit because his family moved up there. And it's just kind of all about these different spaces and about how Black people are affected in the different areas, or they have been kept back from like creating these perfect spaces for themselves.
Hmm.
And it delves into a lot of things that I think white people have a hard time like diluting or like trying to delineate, where it's like Brown v. Board of Education. Sorry to go into my like lawyerness, but Brown v.
No, I appreciate it.
Board of Education did ask for desegregation because that was the best way to get to the resources that Black people needed. But Black people at that time weren't necessarily wanting desegregation, they just wanted fairness. So they
Hmm.
wanted resources put into their school. And that was the best way to argue for it, was desegregation. And it ended up harming the Black community when desegregation happened because Brown v. Board argued that white schools had better resources and therefore Black people should be put in them. But then it was used as a sword to keep Black teachers out of the classrooms by saying, you
Hmm.
guys are less than as teachers, as argued in this statement. So we want to put white people into these classrooms. You can't be taught by a Black person because they're not as smart. And so, like, it was a very double-edged sword when people had desegregation happen. And I think we've seen the reverberations through today, where people often say, hey, if you got into a school and you're a marginalized person, it was affirmative action and you didn't deserve your place,
Hmm.
instead of saying, hey, lots of people deserve that space. We're just noticing that statistically, a marginalized group of people often don't have the opportunity to get that
Hmm.
space. So we're going to have a designated amount where very qualified individuals could also get that. And it's just help it leveling out the pool, and the many resources that white people have had for years and years and years. And so I do think it was an interesting like look into these spaces because we don't know, we're learning a lot more about like Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. Like we're learning so much more about spaces that we didn't recognize or we didn't know about. and so I really liked listening to that book. I just wish I'd had a little bit more focus because I do kind of blank out
Hmm.
during history lessons. But I think it's a very worthwhile book to listen to. He's a very interesting storyteller, and the best parts about it were kind of his look at himself and like the in spaces he's been in that were similar to this. So
Cool.
very good book. Highly recommend. I also listened to Iron Widow by Xiran Zhao.
Oh, how was
Um,
it? I
it
love
was
Xiran on
Xiran is some
Instagram. They're amazing.
they are amazing. I really liked Iron Widow. I would not say that it was my favorite YA. Like
Okay.
it,
So
it
here's the thing. I've been wanting to read that book for the longest time. And one of our friends read the book and didn't enjoy it super much. And honestly, it's scared me.
it scared you.
Yeah, I know. I've got it sitting on the shelf and I'm like, I'm afraid to read it.
So I really liked it as an audiobook. I think it's a good YA audiobook. There are certain parts of it that jump a little bit in like
Mhm.
it's kind of telling and not showing, which we've talked about this. YA moves faster, so sometimes
Right.
you have to like buckle up and enjoy the ride. I wish Jiren had about 50 more pages to like really settle in and tell some stories because I wonder if they had limited space
Hmm.
and they didn't get to effectively tell the story that they wanted to. Because if you think about like Legend Born, that those books are chonkers,
Hmm.
and they also have that fast-paced storytelling where they make logical leaps, but it makes a little bit more sense because you get more storytelling on the page.
Hmm.
And um,
Do you think
like
it's something with this book that it would things would be cleared up in the second book? Because I think Heavenly Tyrant is out now.
yes, I'm on the waiting list for Heavenly Tyrant now.
Okay.
Um, because this, I mean, it's a very interesting world.
Hmm.
This is like a futuristic reimagining of medieval China.
Hmm.
And they're under attack by these alien creatures, like, and they're aided, but like humanity is still recovering from this huge attack that's still ongoing. And humans have learned to like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, I didn't know that this was exactly what was happening, but it makes sense. Humans have learned to harvest the bodies of the defeated alien creatures to create
Hmm.
giant fining mechanic type things called chrysalises. Um, but chrysalises have to be like manned by two people, a man and a woman, and
Hmm.
women are often killed when they're added to these machines. But it's seen as like this very like societally like beautiful thing for women to sacrifice themselves for the men.
Hmm.
Um, and like it can help make your parents like, pay for their
Status.
stuff. Yeah, it can
Hmm.
help like get them out of poverty, things like this. So we follow um uh a woman who's going to be a co-pilot and her sister died at the hands of this pilot, so she goes into the machine with him, and small spoilers, she ends up killing him instead of dying herself. And it's very beautiful, it's very interesting, and like during it she controls some of his like mind power and sees his memories and
Hmm.
sees how awful he is. This is just the catalyst for everything, so I'm ruining a little bit of it, but
I feel like I actually already knew this, but
okay. Well, for people who haven't heard it, but it's stunningly beautiful. It is a stark look at women. Like Jiren does such an effective job because they look at this girl. She has her feet bound and she's in physical pain because she went
mm,
through this. And her name is Zaishin, I believe is the correct pronunciation. Um, and Zaishin is just constantly in pain because of this, and she
mm,
has like this huge like foot envy of every woman who has abled feet. And like she talks about like how certain status things that have happened to her really affected her in the long run. And I think that that's a beautiful way of like discussing some of like medieval type look at
sure.
female versus men. It looks at how women are often made to sacrifice themselves for men.
Hmm.
Because literally female pilots are being sacrificed. And there is a look at like what can it take to, to forgive your family for doing certain things to yourself? Are they owed your forgiveness? It has deep seated themes and it's very beautiful. I would just say like I said, I wish she had had I wish they had had a couple more pages to kind
Hmm.
of flesh out some of the storytelling towards the end because it felt very rushed. because so many things are being revealed, like bang, 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 and you're just like, I need so much more time. So,
Sure.
and sometimes the love interests, because there are love interests, um, didn't weren't as effective. But again, I am
Hmm.
a 34-year-old woman reading about
Hmm.
high school love, so maybe that's also just me being old. But overall, very interesting world. I was very fascinated with the way Xiran makes the world. I think that that's is very beautiful.
They clearly have like an interest in like combining historical stories with
Yes.
fantasy and sci-fi because this is also something like as you're talking about it, I'm like, I read Zachary Ying and that one was a middle grade book, but was very much along those lines of like bringing in historical context and then putting a fantasy and sci-fi spin on it because there's video
Yes.
games and then there's also fantasy and dragons and stuff like that. So,
Which is also what we saw with like She Who Became the Sun. Like we've seen this a lot and I think that there is, especially in like Chinese culture, there is a like deep rooted sense of looking at gender in this type of way, and a lot of like taking historical stories and retelling them,
mhm,
or flipping gender or things like that. I think we've talked about that on previous podcast episodes. So, um, it's very fascinating. I liked it a lot. It was just not my like. I was hoping it would be like 5 stars out the gate, and I think we're like
sure.
a 3.5, 4 star range,
Okay.
which is still not bad. So,
Mhm.
I'm going to listen to the second book, obviously.
There was a lot of controversy with the second book because there were a lot of issues for Xiran getting it published, I know. And there was so much pressure on them to get it released because like they have a pretty big following and a lot of fans. And
Yeah.
I think that Xiran was getting like a lot of pressure from readers like, where's the second book? Why isn't Heavenly Tyrant out yet? And I can't remember exactly what the deal was, but there was some kind of issue with the publisher like not being able to get the book out or something.
Well, I know there's a lot of controversy because I like China,
Well,
and they are someone who like it was during a tumultuous time in the Chinese government when these books came out. So I know that there's been a
well,
lot
the
of
other
like
thing
scandal.
too, like I know that like Jiren has been very outspoken politically,
Hmm.
and I think that they have kind of been the target of like their name has been removed from award nominations and stuff like
Yes.
that for speaking out politically in reference to Gaza and
Hmm.
the genocide occurring there and everything. And I think there may have been some of that involved in
Yes.
their book not getting out in a
Yep.
timely manner as well. I'm not for sure, but I know that like Heavenly Tyrant in particular, there was a lot of stuff going on, and that there was a certain award, I can't remember which one it was, that Jiren was nominated for, and then their name
Removed from,
suddenly
yeah.
was removed from the nominations,
Yeah.
along with a couple of other authors who had been outspoken politically.
Yep.
And I don't think that's right
Nope.
at all. So,
Freedom of speech.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So, but it was interesting. I liked it. For watching, um, let's see, what are some good things I've watched? Well, the finale of Taskmaster happened on
Oh no.
Friday, so we got to watch that.
Sadness.
Sadness. It was so good. The last episode was very funny. A lot of people, it's very funny because like there are a lot of bloopers on TikTok now where you get to
Mhm.
see some behind the scenes stuff, which is also
That's
good
fun.
and full of stuff, but like it's just very funny to have. I know I've been speaking about it from week to week, but Jason Mantzoukas is just like he's such a Hollywood personality where like he's just very interesting and very charismatic, and they have said like he's the first person who's like full Hollywood and not just like comedic circles where he's like in movies and television in a
Hmm.
very specific way.
And he has been for a long time.
And he has been for a long time. So there's like a blooper of Greg where he's like trying to say something and Jason's like, "Oh, are you pitching this as a TV show?" And he's like, "You know the people, get me involved." Like, and people said that like Jason's partner in this season was Stevie. I forget her last name, but she's also amazing. And a lot of people saw them and they're like, they should have a podcast together. And I'm like, Jason could have a podcast with a brick wall, and it would be
He is one of those
like,
people that I think has chemistry with everyone.
yes, and he's so kind. Like like I said, one of my favorite things is watching him in a group of people because like he just like pats people on the back and he's like very like
Mhm.
nice and like personable. And so that was fun to see. And Fatima uh, was also just standout character. She lost the season, obviously,
Oh,
because she refused to do half the tasks.
oh,
She's a very funny character. I think this is one of the best like comedic ones because they always have like a group of characters where one person does not care about the tasks, but they're usually like old men. And it was very funny seeing
hmm.
like a 40-year-old Muslim woman be that, where she's like, I'm not jumping, bruv. Like, I'm not doing that. And she was just like, well, I'm gonna fail miserably at this and it's gonna be fine. Like,
I feel
uh,
like part of that show is kind of just acknowledging like there are going to be some things that I'm just not going to do.
yeah, like, or I'm going to be bad at. Like, this will
Hmm.
be a mistake and we're gonna get through it.
Yeah.
But I've been watching that. I also, for double feature nights, we've been shifting more towards Jaws related items because
Yeah,
4th of
because you're a huge
July is a
Jaws
Jaws
person.
movie. I didn't watch it this year on 4th of July. We'd watched
What?
enough shark
It's the
movies that I was like,
anniversary.
I know, but sometimes I always think that like traditions are good, but you never want the tradition to like overtake it, where we had like a good day, we went out with friends, we came home, we watched Taskmaster because it was ending. And I was like, I think I'm okay without Jaws this year. Like, I think we're fine. We don't need it. But we had already watched Jaws 3 and Jaws 4, the two worst Jaws movies.
Okay.
Um,
Is the
those are,
original Jaws the best in your
well,
opinion?
I mean, it is the best.
Okay.
But Jaws 3 is asinine. It has Dennis Quaid in it in a movie that we said if in 3 seconds turned into a porno, none of us would have been shocked. Like
Mm.
it was like in the 80s and it's Jaws at SeaWorld, Laura, where an entire premise is, and it was Jaws 3D. So it was 3D technically way back when. So there are just random things where you'll see like a turtle's head floating and it's just like, that was a 3D moment.
Mm.
Like, and the entire premise is there are water skiers who are out in the ocean and there's a gate that gets them into SeaWorld because they don't put their animals in like specific containers that are questionably human or like animal rights
Inhumane. Hmm.
violations, inhumane. um but they all come into this gate and a shark gets in and starts attacking everyone, and Dennis Quaid
Here's the
is.
thing. Did anyone watch Deep Blue Sea? They did
So
that a
we've
lot better.
also we also watched that. We also watched that in our Shark Week movie
Hmm.
marathon. So it was very Deep Blue Sea-esque, where it was very funny watching a shark ram into, like, they're at the
I feel
end
like
of.
that movie is bad, but also one where I'm like, I enjoyed it.
Okay, that one was okay. We'll get to Deep Blue Sea because Jaws 3D has a moment where everyone's like has a shocked face, like, oh no, and it just flashes to everyone, and as a shark like slowly descends to break into the glass and flood the area and eat people. But they flash to so many people's faces close up. It is highly
Where it's like
comedic, where
too
it's
many
like
faces.
you're just watching
Where
like
it's like,
five
is this
different faces
SNL?
go
Am I
like,
watching SNL?
oh no. And you're like, what's happening, Dennis Quaid? How did they get you in this movie? Um, his brother
You
comes,
know
he's
what?
afraid
Dennis
of the
Quaid is not
water.
that good. So,
Yeah, I know, he's a huge Republican. But
well,
like,
no, I mean, like, even an actor, I don't think he's that good.
um, but like it also has what's her name? Like from Caroline in the City in it. Um Leah, what's her face? Leah Thompson,
Oh,
who
okay.
is
Yeah,
Zoe Deutsch's mom.
yeah. Hmm.
And so she's in it and she's like trying to make one of the Brody brothers like not be afraid of sharks. And there are so many moments where they're like, a shark attack has happened. You should get in the water. And it's like, these two boys are
What do they not understand
traumatized.
about shark attacks? Don't get in the water. Like,
Yeah, like it's so easy not to get
it's
in the water. And
contradictory.
it's just so funny watching Jaws 3D because it was terrible. And then Jaws 4, they're like, you remember Jaws 3? No, you don't. It never happened. And in Jaws 4, it's like a great white shark who's out for revenge against the Brody family and swims all the way to the Bahamas to get it done.
Okay.
And you have Ellen Brody randomly having a shark sense where she's like, I think there's a shark out there. When she's like dancing with oh, who's the man who doesn't blink? Uh the famous actor
Man who doesn't blink.
from The Dark Knight and Batman Begins. Um oh, he's a British actor. He
Gary
has
Oldman?
no. Um
Michael Caine?
Michael Caine is in Jaws 4. He
You're
specifically
asking how did they get Dennis Quaid? You should be asking how did they get Michael Caine
he
for
has gone on the
Jaws
record
4?
where someone once was like, "Have you ever seen Jaws 4?" And he goes, "No, but I've seen the house it built." So he plays the love
Michael
interest of
Caine?
Ellen
Are
Brody.
you
Yeah.
serious? Like,
It's so funny because her son gets murdered at the beginning of the film, and then like 3 weeks later, because it's Christmas time and it's between Christmas and New Year's, she's talking to her son and she's like, "Your brother's death almost killed me. I don't know, but I gotta live my life." And I'm like, "It's been 3 weeks. Could you imagine if after my mom died 3 weeks later, I was like, Laura, I just gotta move on with my life?"
who wrote this?
Right? It's so funny and so bad. And we talked about it because like Jaws 3 was enjoyable bad. Jaws
Mhm.
4 was a movie that they thought was serious and was in fact stupid. So it's not even that enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like we were like, we prefer Jaws 3 because at least you're laughing. Like at least you're
Yeah.
seeing five people go, "Oh no," and then the shark flashing like, "I'm gonna get you."
Here's my thing. Do you think a lot of these like shark related things are just wildly popular because people want to watch shark attacks because it is just like this weird fear that people have of like I think
Well,
there's certain things out there that like have become almost like not trauma porn but like horror porn that
yeah.
people are just like they must watch all of these things related to severe weather or sharks or whatever because they are just kind of like society has become a little bit obsessed with specific weird death
Yes.
related ways to die. And I think sharks in particular,
Well,
that to the
especially
point where it's like, it doesn't even have to be that good.
well, sharks are also like they're only gonna take like one bite out of you because we're all too lean and they don't want to eat us. So like it
Well,
doesn't
here's the
actually
thing.
matter.
The likelihood of me being killed by a shark is very slim, but I am around a lot of cows, and it is very high likelihood that I could be killed by a cow and not a shark ever.
Laura, let's greenlight that movie, Killer Cow.
It wouldn't even be that good of a movie because it's just like random handling accidents where, like
But
something
you could have a
kicks you or knocks
bull
you
who
down.
gets a taste for human blood and just goes rampant. Like
Oh,
you could
okay.
make that movie. Um,
That would be a very odd one.
well, I mean, we both have watched Deep Blue Sea, which is
At,
another
at
movie that we
least
watched.
sharks are carnivores versus an
Deep Blue
herbivore
Sea.
developing a taste for blood.
Deep Blue Sea is very funny because it asked the question, "What if sharks smart?" And that was what we kept saying throughout the movie. What if sharks smart? What
Yep.
if? What if? Um,
They wanted to make their like shark version of Jurassic Park, basically.
well, I mean, Jaws is the Jurassic Park
That's
and
true.
Jurassic
Yeah,
Park is the is the
that's
dinosaur
true. Yes,
version
yes,
of Jaws, actually,
yes.
because that is
Mhm.
what Steven Spielberg made. Um, but Deep Blue Sea follows Saffron Burrows, who is not the protagonist. It is a shark wrangler who is the protagonist technically, as she made a shark smarter by making its brain bigger, because that's
I was
how
gonna say
brains
she
work.
enhances its brain because she does. I remember
She's
like specifically seeing like the screen of
yeah.
like this is what a shark's MRI looks like.
Yeah. And she wants to find the cure for Alzheimer's because she keeps telling her there's a moment like and they made fun of this on How Did This Get Made, and I think I thought about it constantly while I was watching the film, where she's like, "Have you ever seen an Alzheimer patient as they're getting to the end of their life? My father had Alzheimer's and he kept asking for my mother, and every time I told him she had already died, it was like watching someone get hit by a truck." And How Did This Get Made was like, "I have an idea. Don't tell him."
Yeah, quit bringing it up.
He forgets in 10 seconds. Just be like, she's at the store. Like,
Right.
you are the pain that you were
Not
inflicting
here
on
right
your
now.
father. Like, but that movie was wild. It's wild to see LL Cool J be the
Yep.
co-protagonist as a man named Preacher who works in the kitchen with a parrot that he lets lick frosting off of a cake that is about to be served to a bunch of people.
I specifically remember the. I don't want to spoil it, I guess.
I mean,
Uh,
spoiling Deep Blue Sea, like I think you could spoil it, but
I was gonna say I specifically remember like that scene where the sharks come into the kitchen and LL Cool J is like fighting.
he it's so funny because at one point he goes, "I may not be the best father or husband," and we were my sister-in-law and I were like, "I'm sorry, you have a family?" Like, what was that? There were so many random things in Deep Blue Sea. Like there was a moment where um Stellan Skarsgård kisses a woman on the lips like full force, and I didn't realize
Dylan,
that.
Why do you get involved in these things?
I
He has
don't know.
such acting chops, and then he gets involved in stuff like Deep
In
Blue
Deep
Sea,
Blue Sea.
Thor
But like
2.
he kisses her and I said, "Whoa, those two just kissed and it looked like she was cool with it." Because in my mind, she looks like she's 20 and he is not. And
Yeah.
so we rewound it and watched them kiss each other. And then it became a very specific plot point where like she is grieving the loss of her boyfriend for the rest of the movie in a very horrific way. And we were like,
Oh.
if I hadn't seen them kiss and we hadn't rewound it, we would have been deeply confused. And then there is another character who's like, we had to find Preacher. And my sister-in-law was like, why is he mentioning Preacher in this? And then you find out they're best friends. And we're like, we both caught very important plot points, like in a blink and you'll miss it scene. And if we had missed it, we would have been so confused. And like, how did they become friends? I don't understand what's happening. And they were like, best of friends. It's very funny.
I remember watching that movie. I think I watched it honestly when we went on like a high school trip somewhere and they played it in a charter bus.
Oh, yeah, one of those
And
movies.
yeah, one of those movies. And I remember just being like locked in on it because, I had no friends to chat with on the bus. So, so I was very much like, I am all about this movie. And yeah, it was very bad. And also just like, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, let's talk about something else we enjoyed as we dive back into Bum Bum, the Year of the Dresden.
The Year of
So,
the Dresden.
as we left, we found out that Marconi is going to be in this book because it is a Dresden novel,
Yes.
and so he must. So we get a
And
run
Bony Tony.
Bony Tony, who used to be like on his payroll and very important, but then he got put into
Mhm.
jail, so now he's just a drug smuggler.
Yeah.
Um, and we find out that Marconi is the most powerful crime boss in all of Chicago. Um, and so they pulled out
Which I
this
think we
US.
knew that previously, right?
Yeah, we did, but
Okay.
it's just us getting a rundown in
Oh
book
yeah, just a
seven.
recap, a rehash.
Yeah, we get a rehash of like, do you remember this guy? And we're like, yes, I do. And Butters is like, well, let's look and see what's on the USB drive. And he goes to hand it to Harry, and Harry's like, do not let me touch that. I can't touch that.
I'll
It will
destroy it.
I will destroy it. You have to look and you have to tell me what's on it. And he has a moment where he's like, is that why Gravane wanted him? Because he's a wizard and he can't touch it himself? And I'm like, I mean, Gravane probably could have hired someone to do that.
Right.
Like, he
Hmm.
didn't need Butters for it, but Butters might be important for other reasons, question mark. Um, and then they go, okay, and Butters is like, well, I have to bring my Poco suit with me, which does come back in this
So
section.
many times.
Polka never died. Laura, someone
Polka never
commented on our
dies.
Instagram this morning, Polka never dies.
If you go online and just search deadbeat, Polka never dies is like the first thing that comes up.
Yeah, because it's very important. They repeat it so often. And so they go back to drop off the car at Billy's, and Billy's like, is everything okay? Do you need help? And Harry's like, no, Billy, you stay here until you come back and
Billy
tell
is
me.
so concerned for Harry in this section.
He is very concerned. He also listens to all of his message during this time,
Mhm.
and he hears Sheila, who asks him out on a date or asks him to come around the shop,
Yeah, she
and
hasn't asked him out yet.
yet, and Murph in Hawaii doing that thing in books and movies that I hate, where someone's like on the phone with human, and their like
Mhm. And then
love
they're talking to
interest is
someone.
like, "Get away from me! I didn't say that."
Get off. Thanks for watering my pants. I mean plants,
Oh
Harry. And then
gosh.
all he can worry about then is what? Someone was messing with her pants. She's worried about pants. Why?
It's just like
What did she say about pants?
I read that as a child and I just thought that would be such a problem as an adult and it's never once come up.
What?
So where you're on the phone with someone and your love interest is
Oh,
like distracting you. Like, no, you're on the phone. They're not gonna do that. It's weird. And
yeah. I don't
so
know that I ever had that happen. But okay,
yeah, but apparently happens all the time in
I'm not
literature.
cool enough. I was really
And
into Deep
so
Blue Sea.
deepest, bluest, your hat is like a shark's fin.
Damn it.
Oh, that's the dead giveaway. Um, if you look up why LL Cool J is saying that, apparently he said his hat was like a shark fin in a different song, and I was like, that doesn't answer why that lyric exists, though.
Hmm.
Like, lack of clarity.
Yeah.
Um, so Harry's like, well, I gotta go see Sheila because she's a dame and she's in trouble.
And you know what? Dang it, I just care about saving women. It's just something inherent in me, and I can't stop it. I just love
Oh,
caring about women and saving them, and they need to
and
be saved.
so Harry's like, well, Billy, you live close to the bookstore, so we're gonna head over there. And Butters also finds out that the only thing on the USB drive was a bunch of numbers, and they don't
Mhm.
know what it was. So they head on over to the bookstore, and Bach, who runs the bookstore, is like, look, Harry, you can't come in here anymore because you're trouble. You can send someone
Mhm.
in for you because I like you, but you're
Which is
trouble.
just bizarre. Like, why not just let him in? You could send someone else in to buy books for you that are trouble, but you
Also,
yourself,
you run a shop for the occult. This can't be the first time you were under attack. Like, Harry
exactly.
Dresden is not the only person in Chicago getting attacked at any way, shape, or form, but okay. Um, so
I just
then,
find that bizarre where it's like, no, you're not allowed in, but you can totally send someone in to buy books for you because we're an indie bookstore and we're struggling. We need the support. Like, come
uh,
on.
so Sheila's like, hey, head to the back. And they chit chat a little bit where she feels like where someone has come in asking about the book. And we find out in this section or the previous section that she has an
She has an
eidetic
eidetic
memory.
memory. Yeah, we
Yeah.
found that on the first section.
Yes. And
And no one was shocked to know that that was actually very important information.
I I was shocked. I didn't bring it up in the last section until I said, "Ooh, that was important. I should have brought
Oh,
it up."
okay. I read that in the first section and was like, obviously this is going to be a thing.
I just blazed right through it and didn't mention it in last section. But she said that she came in and the shop didn't feel empty. And he's like, "Oh no, it might be vampires, so you got to be careful." And she starts crying, and he's like, "Oh gosh, I just can't handle when a girl
I
cries."
can't, I hate to see a woman sad.
And
Let me make
then
you feel better.
she asks him out, saying he's a decent person. But then Harry goes
And
to
it's also
leave.
weird that he's like, it's been a while since I've had a human woman interested in me. The only one that possibly could be is Karen, but she's worried about her pants somewhere on her tropical vacation.
I don't like to think about that part.
And I'm like,
Um,
Harry, please
Harry,
get over this voicemail.
my pants, plans. Um, but as he goes to leave, Alicia and Lijan are there, and they're looking for the other person who bought the book, which is Harry, and it's in his pocket.
Also, listening to the audio, they say Alicia and Li Shang like so close together. Those are two similar, like
You are right, Alicia
the way that they
Lijan.
sound.
Yeah,
Alicia Li
that.
Shang, like it just is too much for me. Like Butcher, come
I
on,
mean, it looks very different on page, but you're right. That is the
they sound
pronunciation is
so
there.
similar.
Do you think he thought it was like Xian or something when he wrote it? Like, I don't know if he would know the
Could be,
pronunciation of Lijan. Like, because that's, I mean, that's what you
could
read,
be.
but yeah, I could see him being like, Lee Zan. You're like, butcher.
We are white people who know how white people pronounce things. So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
It's not like Lee
Uh,
Zan. Should I start calling
this
it
is like the
that
Key
for the
and
rest
Peele
of
episode.
the Yes. Uh,
Oh gosh.
so Harry is like, I can't let Bog, who just kicked me out of his store, like go to ruin with these two
Hmm.
people because I'm a good guy. And so he stops out and he pretends like, look, Bach, I know you're not involved in this at all, but I'm the one who did this. And he's trying to like throw them off Bach's trail. And he's like,
Yeah.
thank you, Harry. And Alicia is like, you need to give me the book because I'm much more powerful than you. And he's like, no, someone else tried to take it off me just a couple chapters ago and they couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
he's like, Gravane. And she's like, Gravane's also much stronger than you. So I don't think that that's true. And I imagine that this is the way she reads all of her lines because it's a Dresden Files book.
It kind of is the way the Marges reads it. It's like,
Perfect.
you better
Um,
not do that.
yeah. And she's like, no, because he's much more powerful than you. And he's like, well, go tell that to him. He failed. And then she overtakes his brain. She starts being able to read his mind. And he's like, well, this is scary. And then he finds
Well, because she has
himself,
the ability to what is it called? I can't even remember. It's not. It's like she has the ability to like lock in on people's thoughts.
yes, like a little bit of like a telekinesis type power.
Telekinesis is moving things, but like I'm trying to think of. Oh, it doesn't matter.
telepathy. Um, she has
Some
like
kind of like neuromancy thing.
telepathy, like yeah, and he is going to hand over the book to her. Um, and at this point, she kind of like this voice starts overtaking her where she's like called the corpse taker for the rest of
Hmm.
this section.
Hmm.
Um, and she's like, I'm gonna overtake him, and then this'll all be he'll all be yours. And so Harry reaches down and he actually uses hellfire to burn
Hmm.
through everything to get away, and he starts running. Um, and
A lot of the action in this book, honestly, is like pretty blink and you'll miss it stuff where he's like fighting real quick and he's like, run away.
I do like that though. I prefer that because it's easier to talk about and read through for Hannah because I blank out during action scenes. So I'm like, oh, he's running away.
I
Kind of
just
like my
noticed that there was
thoughts.
like a lot of it in particular in this book where it happens in other books too. But
Well,
in
this
particular,
book,
this book, it's a lot of action where it's like quick action. Now we're running.
well, we're leading up to Harry having to take over this like fallen angel to help him out. So he
Hmm.
has to be outnumbered via power wise in
Yeah.
every single interaction. So he's running away, running away, running away until we get to the end where I assume he will need to call upon this fallen angel to help burn everything to the
Hmm.
ground.
Lash
Um, Lasho. And so he gets hit with a throwing star because Lishan is Asian, so he has to have throwing stars as a ghoul. Like, of
is
course he does.
Asian.
Well, I'm not
So you s-
wrong. Like, he was like two sentences away from throwing some nunchucks at Harry,
That's
okay?
fair.
Like,
He did a scissor kick in the end.
yeah. Oh, he popped up and came down on me. But Harry is actually saved by Miss Guard, who is a woman who works for Marconi. And he gets into a car with Marconi, and he says hi to everyone. And it's like, oh, look, we're all together again. And this is the section where I posted on TikTok something from the last book series where I got very confused by him sharing a stare with Murphy, and I was like, well, that
Mhm.
would have been a soul gaze. And they're like, oh no, you only get one chance to soul gaze, which is mentioned in this section. And I'm like, so are we to assume that nothing about you as a person ever changes, or you only get one shot to read someone's soul, and then if they change at all, your preconceived notions are still with them?
You know what I don't appreciate is that the fandom has locked in so much on Jim Butcher just like changing things, and they're like, nope, that's absolutely correct. He changed it at book 7, and we're totally in agreement. Whereas in other fandoms, people would totally be calling this out.
Right. Because like I
It
don't
blows my
know.
mind that people are so okay with like
I mean,
it's
maybe
only
in the
one chance.
previous 6 books he mentioned it. I don't remember it being mentioned. But if that's true, that's insane. Because then in this world, your soul is so fundamentally like unchangeable that you can't have something dark happen to you and your soul switches.
Well, and here's the thing. It's also a little bit, it doesn't, I shouldn't say a little bit. It doesn't really fit as far as Harry goes because he is
Yeah.
undergoing a lot of changes himself in terms of like, he's clearly depressed and he's going
Yeah.
under a lot of trauma and undergoing a lot of trauma and stuff. So obviously he's going to have deep things happen to him.
Or like, does your soul just know everything that will happen to you? Like, it's so the world building just doesn't fit for me, and
Hmm.
it's very
Hmm.
frustrating. Where it's like you have this very cool, unique
Yeah, it's
ability, and then
weird
you
to
get
assume that people are so static like that.
And then we're literally Eminem. You get one shot. Do not miss a chance to go. This
Hmm.
opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You don't get it anymore.
I
um,
freaking love that song.
I mean, I just quoted it off the top of my head. So you better lose yourself.
Yourself.
um, so yeah, Harry and Marconi have that like talk of, hey, I need you to take down this person. I'm not a hitman. Like, I'm
Hmm.
not gonna kill anyone for you. And Marconi wants him to go after whoever killed Bony Tony for him.
Hmm.
Because Bony Tony was working on something serious for him. And Marconi tells him about like Gravane, and all of this stuff going on in the organization, that members were part, um, sorry. And he talks about the fact that they found a bunch of shit from World War II, which, as we know, is when the Kemmler book and Kemmler
Hmm.
was like fully in action.
Yeah,
And
because,
so,
the height of Nazis.
Kemmler was a Nazi. Um, and so he purchased some of the contents of it, and that's why he had this USB drive because it has something to do with those contents that he purchased for him. And he also says that the other night, um, a couple members of his organization had an altercation and there was a gunfight. His man was mortally wounded, left for dead, but then he wasn't dead. Like something
Right.
happened where they were fully healed. And he said it was surgeons at Cook County who said it was a miracle. Like two EMTs were on the scene. It was a whole thing. Um, and then he just like drops Harry off at the emergency center and he's like, well, you have a deep cut. You could just go in there and do some detective work. And Harry's like, yeah, sure thing, boss. Have a good day. Like, so Marconi comes in and he goes, I have some plot context for you. And Harry says, thank you for the plot
That's
context.
kind of how Marconi does it, where he just appears
Yeah.
and he's like, I know a lot of things because I'm the head criminal in
Well,
Chicago.
also, the EMTs, they go to Cook County Hospital. Like, EMTs usually aren't housed in the hospital.
Yeah, why
They're
are they at
usually
the hospital?
they're usually at like fire departments
Right.
because that's where you house the ambulance. So like it was very confusing to me where I was like, you know where they don't put ambulances? At the hospital where people are in a like a shorter range to get to the hospital themselves. They're usually at a fire
Hmm.
department more inside the
That's
community
actually a
to
good
get
point. I
to the
didn't think
people
about that.
faster. It was very confusing. One of my brothers-in-law works with EMTs at a hospital, so like for me I was like this makes no sense. Like why would they
Yeah.
be at the hospital? That's not where EMTs work. They work if Chicago Fire taught me anything, they work with hot firefighters.
Chicago Fire taught me anything. It's that the EMTs do not stay at the hospital.
Well, also my brother-in-law was an EMT, but like, yeah, he worked at a fire department. You don't work at the hospital. You're close.
Yeah, usually paramedics are at fire departments.
Yeah, very, very confusing. But anyway, he goes into the emergency center. The EMTs are just hanging out there for some reason, saying we're closer to the hospital. And he goes up to one of them who is like, look, man, something weird happened last night. I don't want to talk about it, but this woman who was dressed up like a Renaissance fair came on the scene and just healed this guy. And it was really freaky and it's just very unsettling. And Harry is like, I don't know what to do with this information because that means that Kumori, who it must have been because I didn't see her face, but she was dressed up like a Renaissance. Um, and she was the one who helped with Cowl in the previous chapters, those two who we couldn't see their faces. So they might be
Also, names again too similar because we have Kemlar and now we have Kamori and all like
and
no.
Cowl and
Hmm.
Mavra's back and Mab. We're about to go
Mab's
see
back. I'm
Mab.
like, no, no, no. Stop.
Why, Harry? There are so many letters of the alphabet, butcher.
Mhm. He really likes this middle section.
Yeah. LMNOP, if you will. So he's kind of like, I don't know what to do with this information because that means that they were healing someone and like they're
Mhm.
not just fully into the Kemmler like power for power's sake. So
Right,
what's
right.
going on with all these people? And so then he goes back, he gets his blue beetle, he comes home.
Which he's so glad about because he's like, I'm sick of hearing that open doors sound.
And Butters was like, you get used to it. And so Thomas, he comes in, he and Thomas have a little powwow where Butters is sleeping in the other room. And Thomas is like, look, he's a coward. He's not going to be there when the fighting gets tough. He's going to run away. And that's dangerous for you. You need to stop like utilizing your power for people like
Hmm.
this. And Harry's like, dude, that's not the way to live. Like, stop talking about him like that. You have no idea what
Hmm.
he's been through. You need to stop. Um, and then they start talking about the oh, and Marconi disclosed that this has something to do with the Urkling, who is one of the
Yeah.
High Fae, who is
It's like a
part,
fairy king
yes.
situation.
And he like takes out black hounds the size of horses and he like leads a hunt
Hmm.
um for like a stag or something like that. It's like it's a whole hunt. They're looking to bring him out into the world and he would lead to
Hmm.
destruction.
And I also
So
got glimmers of like Summer Night, and I was like, oh, take us
I
back,
know we did love
Dresden.
Summer Night. I mean, you're about to have more glimmers because we're
Hmm.
about to go see Mab.
Yep. It's more nights.
And they're like, "Oh, he sounds like he could go either way." And Harry's like, "Yeah, fairies can go either way. They're complicated
Mhm.
creatures." And then they talk
Honestly, the
about,
fairy stuff has been the most consistent in terms of the world building for
well,
what
that's
I
because
remember.
their entire consistency is, "Hey, fairies are inconsistent."
I mean,
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
true, yeah.
like it's just kind of like, "Oh yeah, no, they're inconsistent. You don't know
Hmm.
what they're gonna do or whose side they're
And
on." And
maybe it
that's
is
like
because
that's
we've had
helpful.
very little, we have not had as much, I shouldn't say very little, we've had not as much information given to
Yeah.
us on fairies.
And they talk about like Gravaine's buddy who has liver spots, who I keep thinking might be Justin. We'll
He
see.
keeps like literally just calling him liver spots. Like you know how he nicknames people,
Yeah.
and then he's just like liver spots did this, liver spots did that, to the point where I was like the fourth time it's mentioned, I'm like, okay,
So it's Justin, right?
bad nickname.
Well, and he's like, he looks familiar to me, and that's why I keep being like, okay, it's either someone who like is dressed up as someone else,
Hmm.
or it's fucking Justin. I don't care.
Hmm.
And so they're talking about the cipher with the passcode on the numbers. They're kind of just giving a rundown of like, here's where everyone is, and here's what's going on. And the Cowl and Kamari, they might be people from the White Council. How would I to know? And then Harry's like, well, I'm going to go ask a fairy about this. So he goes out to talk to his fairy godmother with Mouse at his side. They
Leah.
drive all the way up the North Shore, as he is wont to do. And he calls on her, and someone else comes. And it is, as we
Hmm.
mentioned multiple times,
Yeah,
Mab. And Mab is like, hey, look, your fairy godmother has like
she doesn't have the skills.
overstepped multiple times. And so she is tied up at the moment. And he's kind of like, oh, that doesn't sound good. It's not going to be good
Hmm.
for Leah. And he's like, well, she's my godmother, even if she's an insane predator, if as we all remember,
Yeah.
she is a predator. Um, so Harry, come on. And then he talks about the word of Kemler with Mab,
Mhm.
because she's like, well, in Leah's stead, I will help you in any way she is able to. But
If
there are, if she would be able to, because she kind of keeps saying like, I'm only going to tell you what Leah knows, and I
yeah,
will not tell you what I know. She also does offer for him to be her knight, and he's
her
like, I
winter
saw
night.
what happened to the last winter night, and no, thank you. Um,
But
and
here's the
so
thing, it's one of those deals where it's like he's offered this and he says no, and then I'm thinking obviously he's gonna do it. Like
yeah, at some point he's going to take on the mantle, and
it's how he
then
rolls. He's like,
yeah,
no, that
it's
sounds like a
coming.
bad situation to be in. I'm not gonna do
So
that. I'm sure like next section he's doing it.
well, and they talk about the book and how like the mortal technology was used to conceal it. Um, Gravane and the corpse taker and Cowl are after it, and she's kind of like, interesting. And she has moments where she's like, well, Leah would be able to tell you this, but nothing else. Um, and she talks about the hunter, the spirit of the hunter, and like what it would mean for this hunter of the whatever it
Hmm.
is to come out, and how you don't want to do that. And it's just she talks about the fact that he still owes her two favors. So there's a lot of subterfuge. Again, it's kind of like all these characters from previous books are coming in and
Hmm.
being like, here's additional context you need to know. Do you remember that I exist? Good. I'll be here for a while. Bye. Like that's kind of
Kind of.
happening with this. Um, and they talk about the Dark Hollow, which is Halloween, and it's
Hmm.
tomorrow night.
Which for whatever reason, I don't know why I was not connecting in my brain that this was around Halloween, even though I'm pretty sure we knew that in the first section. It was just like not clicking with me that this was Halloween.
I think it wasn't clicking for you because we read these in the summertime.
I think that's exactly it, where I'm just like, it's July. It's
for
not.
for you and I, these are specifically summertime books now, and we're both like,
Mhm.
can't be in the fall. Why would it be taking place? It's hot out.
They're
Are they
probably
not
all
outside?
taking place in the fall, and I've just like assumed that
No,
they're
some of
all.
them do take place in the summer because he talks about like air conditioning and heat and like
Well,
heat
and wasn't there a
waves.
winter one too?
Yeah, there was a winter one too. I feel like
Okay.
Summer Night literally took place around Halloween. No, that was like spring and summer solstice, so never mind.
Hmm.
Um,
There was one. I'm for some reason I'm thinking like one of them that was involving winter because one of them was involved during the winter because he mentioned like not being able he had candles everywhere for heat.
Right. And so, yes, they talk about a lot about how Kemmler was a madman and bringing about his teaching will lead to destruction, um, and how that they can't really do it without the word, so Harry has to get to the word. This is also a section where I think it's so funny because Mavra was like, "Tell no one," and I'm like, Harry has told all of the
He
secrets.
tells everyone.
He is telling everyone his business. Um, but
It's
yeah,
one of those
so
deals where he's like, yeah, they're after the Book of Kemlar. And
well, now we have more people on the scene because
Mhm.
Mavra didn't hire me because more people were obviously after it. It was just me, and now there are all these people. So how was I to know? But anyway, they kind of like leave it at that where they're in danger and he'll never be her knight. And then he comes home and he's immediately attacked by zombies.
Mhm.
He runs into the house, and Gravane is just using zombies to like shut down all of his
Yeah.
wards because the wards were not meant for long-lasting bodies just ramming into
Hmm.
them. And so they do, in fact, take down all the wards and then they burst in through a window and grab Butters, as they're trying to like figure out
Yeah.
a way to get Butters out. He ran down and he got a backpack filled with Bob, so that Bob can travel. Um,
A backpack filled with Bob.
what a bad backpack. And this is also the section where as they're battering down the hatches, Butters is like, I don't want to die. I don't want to be here. And Harry is like,
Hmm.
look, I'm not dying. Thomas isn't dying and you're not dying. You want to know why? Because Polka never dies. We will never die. And he makes Butters scream, Polka will never die, multiple times. Then he's immediately kidnapped by Gravane.
Hmm.
So Harry talks Gravane into letting Butters go, saying, like, he doesn't remember anything about the word. He doesn't know what's happening. I do. I will go with you if you let
Right.
Butters go. And Thomas is kind of like, just let them kill this guy. He's a rough hang. And Harry's like, no.
Thomas is very much not a team player.
He is like, I want my brother to survive, and I don't
Hmm.
really give a shit about anyone else.
Yeah.
But Gravane is like, okay, if you come with me, fine. We will get all together and we will go off, and then I will let Butters out and you will help me with the word. And then he kind of figures out that they don't really know what the word is, but Harry's like, but I know the
Hmm.
numbers, so, and they're in my pocket, so like I'm still useful. And they all kind of are like, yeah, okay, that tracks. And I'm like, does it? Like, no, it doesn't. He doesn't know the word. What are you talking about? What? I'm
It's like
very
he has
confused.
pieces of it though.
Yeah. And so as they're getting in the back seat, and this is when Liver Spots like obviously wants to kill
Hmm.
Harry, and where I was like, okay, he's either someone from the White Court Council or why is it White Court and White Council too? There's so many confusing names. Laura's
Thank you. There's
sigh
just
was
like
heard.
too much like confusion in terms of the names.
But that's why I was like, Liver Spots either has to be White Council or he is Justin. But anyway, then all of a sudden, a bunch of ghosts come in who are Civil
Hmm.
War era because, of course, they have to be Civil War era up in Chicago. Do you know how many battles happened at the Civil War in Chicago? I don't think
Lots,
many.
right?
They could
Right?
have had like 1920s gangsters, and instead they were like Civil War on horses.
Do you think
No.
it's like I don't know. I was thinking maybe it had something to do with the Nazi of it all, and like they're trying to
I
get
don't
those
know.
vibes of like
Because
KKK.
but it's the corpse taker doing it, and she doesn't seem to be so much into the
Oh,
Nazi
yeah,
vibe of it all.
that's
She seems to
true.
be in like different vibe of it all. So the Civil War
Yeah, it's
made
making less
zero
sense.
sense. I think Butcher just liked men on horses. How do I get there? Civil
Yeah,
War era. And it's like
that's fair.
you could have had like I don't know, plains people. You could have done so many different things and you chose
Hmm.
the weirdest one. Um but
For
anyway, they
that
come in.
particular area, yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah, and so they came in, they all fight. Um, Harry loses the numbers in his pocket
Hmm.
during this time, but Harry, Thomas, and Butters all escape, even though Harry just was like, I'll give you my word, and then just never gave it to Gravane. Gravane just gave him his word. So that was a very funny moment where I was like, how can they escape? Harry gave them his word. And he goes, no, he technically never did that.
Right.
Like, Gravane gave him his word, and he said,
He's
I'll
very
give
good at
you my
utilizing a
word.
loophole.
Yeah, he is very good at utilizing those loopholes. So they run away and they go to the only safe space, Murph's
Murphy's
house.
house, which he's like,
So
it's interesting to me now that he's like, it's cute. It's cute. And I'm like, before you said it looked like an old grandma's house.
It
And
was an
now
old
you're
grandma's
like,
house.
she's made it cute though. Like it was her
She
grandma's
smells of
place, but
strawberries.
now it's cute.
Now she smells of strawberries.
Like it used to be
Um,
really like bad when Susan was around, but now that
oh,
Susan's gone, it's kind of really cute. And I
we
think I'm actually like really into doilies.
we also found out that Gravane like knocked out the entire grid system, so everything's in darkness in Chicago. And so Thomas uses this as an excuse to steal all of her pizza and beer, which I also thought, why does she have leftover? Isn't she gone for like a week? She's gone long enough that Harry has to water her plants. Leftover pizza will not keep. She should have thrown that out. Murph is a bad planner.
That's really gross.
What?
It's really gross.
Yeah, like if you think about it, she's leaving for a good long while, and
Yeah.
she's just like, "I'll leave this pizza in here." Ew, no, throw it away. Um, so anyway, Thomas utilizes that. He gets ice cream for them all. Harry and Butters has a heart to heart where Butters is like, "I'm
Butters is like,
useless."
it's okay if you're gay. Like,
Yeah, well, but before that, he's like, "I'm useless. I'm just not very, I'm not very helpful in these situations." And Harry's like, "We all have our special skills, Butters. Yours is research." And I was like, "Oh,
yours research.
this
Ah.
reeks of early 2000s Buffy, Giles, and Charmed Ones, Leo. Like every single magical entity had to have one guy who just sat in a library reading a book."
Hmm.
And he was the most special person in the world because he read, Laura, and reading is important.
Kind of like that guy from Dollhouse that I hated.
Yeah, you always have one guy just doing
Hmm.
research.
Spencer or whatever his
Yeah,
name
I think
was.
his name wasn't it
It's not
Cooper?
Spencer.
It's Cooper because it had to be worse than Spencer. It's Cooper.
Is it
Spencer
Cooper?
is Criminal Minds library man. um, but they like Butters is like, yeah, I can help research. I'll help you out if I could. They everyone has their own special skills. And then he says, like, I can't believe you didn't tell me you were gay. And Thomas is laughing. And this is a moment where it is so easy for Harry to say, that's my brother. Like it's so easy to say, like, oh, actually, he's my half brother. And Harry just does it. It's just a
He's
no
just,
homo
yeah, I
joke.
was gonna say he just has to go full board, no homo.
I know. And Thomas like comes in and he like kisses the top of
And
his
he's
head and
like
he's like, he gets
laughing and
like
ha
this
ha ha ha
sometimes.
ha.
And then he secretly doses Harry to get him to fall asleep. And Harry has a dream with uh the fallen angel, the shield. And the shield's like, I can help you. I can now get into your mind because you used hellfire, and I'm a beautiful woman, not an ugly fallen angel.
He's seen her true form.
I'm not like the other fallen angels. I have boobs. And she tries to like make him an offer to utilize her more because he's in over his head and she could be
Mhm.
helpful. And Harry's like, I know how this works. The first taste is free, where I used hellfire and I like did it willingly. But sooner or later, I would be digging into the concrete to get towards that coin to bring you out, and I would die. And he like pushes her image out of him in a hot tub. There's also a moment where he's like, I've never been in a hot tub. And I'm like, Harry,
What is his life?
go to a hotel. Go sit in a hot tub. It's fine. Like, um, and so he like gets her out of his dreams and he falls back asleep. So then Harry wakes up. He is like, I did need that sleep. And Thomas is like, yeah, but you still look awful. And we find out that the grid's still out. Everything's like kind of being drummed up by black magic.
Hmm.
And Harry is in over his head. So he's going to
As
call
usual.
in the wardens, which is something he's not done before. And Thomas is like, okay, I'll come help you. And Harry's like, nope, you
No,
are
you need
white.
to get out of here.
You are White Court. I am White Council. If they find out we're brothers, they're going to get involved and use us against each other to prove a point. And so Thomas is like, I guess I can't come with you. And Harry tells him to stay back and research with Butters. Butters agrees to help, saying, like, I can't kill people, but I can do this. And I had a moment where I was like, how are they going to tell him if they decode everything? And he's like, send Bob out. I was like, okay. Bob, who is in this book scary, and then one of those like walkie-talkies. That is what Bob
Pretty
did in
much.
this book. um so Harry heads on out because he's like, well, I don't have the book. I think it's supposed to be able to summon the hunter, and that's what's going on. And So I wish I knew the summoning spell because I think if I could call the hunter myself, I could distract it long enough that the others couldn't utilize him to get Kemmler's like power and bring it to bear. And Butters was like, oh, if only I had a photographic memory. And Harry was like, ooh, I know someone who had a photographic memory. Laura did too. Hannah didn't. Hannah forgot that that happened in this book.
I just
Uh,
knew when he mentioned it, like I'm like the fact that he even drops like eidetic memory, like he was gonna use that at some point.
yeah. So then Harry goes over to his office to see some stuff to figure out where Sheila lives because he has like a reverse lookup for phone numbers. Um, and he tries to get a hold of her. He can't. He calls the White Council and he literally is talking to Anastasia Lucio, who is the head of the wardens and the next up to be senior counsel. And
Mhm.
she's like, what's going on, Harry? And he's like, why is she the one answering the phone? I guess I'll just never know. And I'm like, well, I'm sure we will by the next 14 chapters.
Hmm.
Um, and she says she's going to send in the cavalry within the next 6 hours and to rendezvous at his house. And he's like, my apartment's a no-go. Can we go to McNally's? And I'm like, can you go
I
somewhere where
don't know
you
why
don't know
he.
the people?
I
Like,
was gonna say, why does he always want to go to like very public locations? It's weird.
were very important locations to him. Like, you can
Hmm.
look up an unused lot and send people there. That's an option.
Yeah.
But you're just going to what, burn down McNally's bar? He's not going to give you that beer anymore. And
Say
so
goodbye to those burgers you love so
And
much.
so Harry decides he has to go talk to Sheila in person, and he's talking to his legs and opens the door, and Billy's there. And Billy's like, you know,
I'm concerned about you. You've been
I'm
talking to yourself a
you've
lot.
been talking to yourself, and like Bach noticed it. And I'm like, hey, Bach just kicked him out of the bookstore. Why are they all chit-chatting about Harry talking to himself? And B, like, people talk to themselves like sometimes,
Hmm.
unless they like look like they're hearing an answer. Like talking to your legs when you're by yourself is not the strangest
Here's
thing
the
in the
thing though,
world.
Hannah. Are you getting a tip off of like something being up here? Because I totally am.
What do you mean? Oh, like Billy? Like something's up with Billy
No,
or
something's totally up with like the Harry talking to himself
Oh,
thing.
yeah, I do think Harry's probably talking to himself more and we don't realize it because the fallen angel like hasn't shown it to him yet. But it's just weird that like it came about with the leg thing. Like because I
It's
was like
weird that
the
it's
leg
brought
thing
up
is
in
a
that way,
reasonable
but
thing.
like I really do think that like something's going on at that bookstore and yeah,
Oh, something's going on with that bookstore. Sheila is shady as hell and they're all talking
that's
to
what I
each
mean.
other and
Like
like
I
yeah.
don't think Sheila is who we think Sheila is,
Well, she
and
can't be because Murphy
that's
is the love interest, so you can't have a
right,
second love
right,
interest in the book. Like, Karen had to leave to South America to no longer be the main love interest.
right.
So, yeah, something has to be up with
Susan
Sheila.
had to leave to go to
Susan,
South
oh yeah,
America.
Susan, sorry.
Karen is
Um,
on vacation and he's longing for her, but
but here's the
she's
thing,
losing her
Susan and
pants to
Karen are
someone
also
else.
too similar of names.
Yeah, the ands. Yeah.
Anyway, so Harry's like, I'm fine, Billy. I know I'm talking to myself, but it's just my legs. It's all fine. Um, and
And possibly talking to a woman who may or may not exist at a
yeah,
bookstore.
that's true. Um, and so Harry heads out to go see Sheila, who in previous books I did kind of critique Butcher for his Cabrini Green references because it's like around this time it was being shut down, and he does point that out in this book where he's
Mm.
like, Cabrini Green is being shut down slowly, or they're remodeling things. A lot
Hmm.
of it just got torn down, and there aren't really that many apartment complexes there, but there's enough here that I'm like, I'll forgive it this time. This time, no, I was just like, okay, at least he's like pointing out that the Cabrini Green area is being shut down during this time. Um, but anyway, he has to walk all the stairs up to Sheila's apartment, and she helps him find the words to the summoning spell because she has an eidetic
But
memory.
she's like, don't look at me
Yeah, she's
while
like,
I'm doing this. And he's like, I won't. And she's like, you've been doing nothing but staring at me.
well,
And
she's
it's
dressed
like,
up like I Dream of Jeannie, and so her boobs are out. Um,
yeah, a lot of this is where I'm like, something's up with Sheila. And I don't know that Sheila is
exists. You
real.
think she's a figment of his imagination? I
I
always think she's
do.
evil.
I
Um,
do think that Sheila is a figment of his imagination. And now I'm questioning, like, at this point, I'm like questioning how reliable Harry is as our narrator.
I mean, he might be going insane. We'll see. Um, and so they kiss. They have a weird section where he's like, I haven't been touched in so long. And I'm like, Thomas just kissed you on the forehead a page or two ago.
But the thing is, it's a very specific type of thing where it's like certain things count and other things don't. And like if he were touched by Karen Murphy, that would count.
Right, but he
Somebody
says
else
like
random,
he
like
but he
he's
said I'm not touched very often. Like Thomas doesn't touch me. And I'm like, he literally like
he
I
just
get that it was
did.
a joke, but he did just kiss you on the forehead.
Hmm.
So you did get one of those. And why did you mention it in the previous section if in this section you haven't been touched in 5 million moons?
Hmm.
But then he's like, oh, but it's a kiss. And then they stop because they quote unquote don't know each other. Because
Right.
Harry is a gentleman. And then as he leaves, Kumori is there and says, if you try to move, I'll kill you, which is the end of this section.
Hmm.
So join us next week to find out, is Sheila evil or is she a figment of his imagination or both? She could be
I
just
mean, it could
Lashiel.
be both.
I think she could be Lashiel. I think that that's
Like, yeah.
actually Lashiel. Yeah, I think that that is probably the most likely, just
Hmm.
based on what we've learned so far. And he's talking to himself with Lashiel as
Hmm.
Sheila,
Like
um,
portraying like a sexy
portraying what he
bookstore keeper
wants.
of his dreams.
Yes, exactly. And like that's why she would have the photographic memory because she's seeing what Harry
She's
sees.
convenient.
Yeah. And so I think that that could be what's happening, but we
Hmm.
will find out next
Yeah,
time.
that's kind of what I'm predicting because I like this is the section for me where I'm like, oh,
Well,
Harry is not reliable.
join us next week as we delve into the rest of Deadbeat. And in the interim, if you guys would go on over to the social media platform that you're utilizing right now and give us a 5-star rating and subscribe and even throw us a review if you can.
Oh,
Those are
on the
great
podcast
on
platform
the
you're using.
podcast. Yeah. Sorry. On the podcast platform you're using, and just throw us a 5-star rating and review and subscribe. That would be very helpful. That is a great way to get other people into the mix and talking more about Dresden Files. You can also follow us at OWWR Pod on all the social platforms in which we exist, mostly Blue Sky and Instagram, or send us an email at ourpod@gmail.com, or check us out at ourpod.com, where we have a bunch of great stuff, including some recent author highlights.
Yeah, and those are
So
great.
please head on over there. There's another one coming out this month that I'm working on right now, and some other background podcast stuff. We're working on new logos and everything, so keep an
Yeah.
eye out for our launch of those as we get ready. We're pretty excited. So it's a great time to tune in, and it's a great time to tell a friend to give us a listen. So
Yeah,
please
and
do
thanks
that
for
as
listening
well.
today.
Yes, and join us next week as we close out Deadbeat of Ba-dum Bump Ba-dum Bump, this year of the Dresden installment. Bye.
Bye.